Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming today to this webinar. I'm excited to see all of these beautiful people here today. Um, I know everybody's getting a lot of information from TikTok recently on surrogacy, and we're really excited to have everybody here joining us today. So what I thought we could do is just kind of answer a lot of the basic questions that we're getting from a lot of the inquiries that we've been getting. We're going to talk about, the minimum requirements to be a surrogate, what it means to be a surrogate, what the process is like, and obviously we'll go over also to the compensation. Everybody's asking about what's the compensation and how does it work. So, and if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to type them in the question box and I will be sure to answer them for you. But let's start with requirements. What does it take to be a surrogate? So here at Family Source, our requirements are pretty much on par with most other agencies and with the clinics that we work with and that our parents use. So age requirements. To be a surrogate, you have to be at least 21. And we accept surrogates all the way up through the age of 42. So between 21 and 42. The most important thing is you have to have already had your own children. You have to have been able to carry a successful pregnancy. So whether that means you had a C-section or a vaginal birth, that doesn't really matter. Just that you were able to carry a healthy pregnancy, you birthed the baby, and you currently are raising your own children right now. At least one pregnancy. And, if you've had complications in your pregnancies, maybe you had gestational diabetes or preeclampsia, that's okay. A lot of clinics will still work with you. But again, it's if you just have had to have you have to have had at least one pregnancy of your own. If you've had miscarriages in the past, that's also okay. We will work with people who have had at least up to two miscarriages. So any more than that, we unfortunately won't be able to work with you. It's even better if maybe you had a miscarriage and then a successful pregnancy afterwards. That would be perfectly fine as well. You must have received full prenatal care for all of your pregnancies. We do request your prenatal records and your birth records from your doctors and your hospitals. So we will get to see what your prenatal care was like, what your pregnancies were like, if there were any complications or anything that came up within that pregnancy, we'll be able to see that. And the clinics will also look at that as well whenever you are matched with parents. We also don't accept smokers, but if you do smoke and you're able to be smoke-free for at least 3 months, we'd be happy to talk to you. Of course, our parents and our clinics would require you to continue to be smoke-free throughout the whole process and the pregnancy. So if you're able to do that and commit to that, then we would love to talk to you. You also must be off of any psychiatric medications for at least 6 months. So if you take medication for anxiety or depression or something like that, if you are willing and able to come off of that medication and be able to stay off of it for at least 6 months, we'd be happy to talk to you at that point as well. A lot of the questions we get are, am I able to be on government assistance like Medicaid and food stamps or WIC or anything like that? To be a surrogate, we require you to come off of any government assistance that you might be on. As long as you're able to support yourself without that assistance, then, we can talk to you and get you going and, approve you to be a surrogate. But unfortunately, government healthcare, meaning Medicaid, is not surrogate friendly. And they will not allow you to be a surrogate while on that insurance. So if you're able to come off, then we would be happy to work with you. And you have to be able to come off of that before being matched with a parent, or intended parents. So, usually from now till the matching process is about 2 months. So that gives you a couple months to prepare and, remove yourself from those assistance programs if you're able to. Another thing that we look for is BMI, so body mass index, which is basically just comparing your height to your weight and how much, what your body mass is. We accept anybody who has a BMI under 32. Um, and then if you are 32, between 32 and 35, we also will, talk to you and accept you into the program. But if you're above a 32, we do ask that you try to work on losing those last couple pounds to get under 32. And we do, just because a lot of clinics will require it to be your BMI to be under 32, and they won't approve you to move forward if it's above that. So we do have a licensed dietitian on staff, and she's more than happy to help you lose those last couple pounds. She can give you some meal plans and exercise regimens and different things like that. She's very, willing to help in that respect. So again, that's something else that we offer here at Family Source as part of our agency. I believe those are the basic qualifications. If anybody has any questions about any specific, qualifications you were asking about, feel free to drop them in the chat and I'll check. Can we get the information for the dietitian? That's a good question. So actually, so if you have any other questions about qualifications and things like that, what I would ask you to do is go ahead and fill out the application to be a surrogate on our website. You all also probably should have received an email as well with a link to the application. But if you didn't, go ahead and check your spam. Sometimes it goes to spam. And if you still didn't get that email, then you can find the link on our website under the surrogate section. It'll say apply now. You can click on that button and fill out the application. That application will come to me and my team, and we will review your application, and we'll set up a time to talk about everything surrogate related, your application, everything like that. And we will give you that information at that time. We'll give you the information for the dietitian at that time. Here's another question. If you have IUD birth control, when should that be removed? Before applying, or will there be a time that will be discussed later on? That's a great question. I would say you don't have to remove it before applying. Definitely once you're matched, I think you would have to have that removed before the medical screening at the parent's clinic. So, you could have it removed now if you feel like you're okay with having it removed. If you want to maybe do the application and get through the, initial intake process and make sure this is something that you really want to do, and something, make sure that we are, okay working with you moving forward. After that, then you could have it removed for sure. But you will need it removed before you would go to a clinic for medical screening, which would probably be, if you would apply today, within the next maybe 2 to 3 months. So, do we pay for all medical screening and care prior to matching? So that's a great question too. So, anything before matching, if we ask you, so we do require a pap smear within the last year. So if it's been longer than a year, then since you've had your pap smear, then yes, we ask you to get that, and that would be, on your responsibility for the pap smear. And we also ask for your OB doctors to sign off on a letter saying that they do approve for you to have another pregnancy. Again, so that would be like basically like a doctor's visit. You could do that and the pap smear at the same time. So that would be on your own as well. Once you are matched, though, yes, you are correct. Everything related to the surrogacy from that point would be covered and or reimbursed by the parents. How much time will it take for the application to be viewed and answered? That's a good question. Typically, that's done within a day or so. Because everybody has been coming in off of our TikTok and we have a ton of inquiries and applications to go through. We are working as hard as we can to get all those reviewed and processed, but it will probably be a few days at least before somebody reaches out to confirm your Zoom time if you scheduled one. If you didn't schedule one, we will reach out to schedule one with you. So unfortunately, it's taking a little bit longer, which is, a good thing that we have so many people interested, because I can tell you, we have so many parents who are waiting for the perfect surrogate to come along. So it just is such an amazing thing that so many of you are interested in doing this for these parents. The next question, do you have to wait a year after giving birth to become a surrogate? That's a great question too. So, no, you don't have to wait a year. A lot of clinics, well, that depends. If you have given birth vaginally, a lot of clinics will start working on medical screening and getting you ready for another pregnancy at 6 months. Sometimes it is a year. But most of the time, if it's a vaginal birth, it's within 6 months. If it's a C-section, however, they most of the time will not start doing medical clearance until a year past a C-section. So if you think about the time from the time you, apply to the time you get to matching, the timeline there is about 2 months, just depending on how quickly we can get your medical records from your doctors and your hospitals and review all of them and make sure that everything's ready to go to be matched. Then once you get into matching, we will start sharing profiles with you of different parents who we think would be a good match. And you get to choose who you would like to meet. We'll have a match meeting with them and one of our staff members on the call as well. And you get to know them, you talk to them, ask questions, make sure you're all on the same page. And then if you both decide to move forward after that meeting, you would then, by the time you get to medical screening at their clinic, it's still going to be probably at least another month on top of that, at least. So, the whole process to medical screening is average maybe 3 to 5 months. So if you, just had a baby, and you want to be a surrogate, I would say, wait at least 3 to 6 months after having a baby just to start the process. So you're getting into that time frame. And to give your body time to heal, to give yourself time to bond with your own baby and get over all of, the newborn phase and everything like that too. But feel free to apply at any time and we will reach out when we're ready to match once you're at that point too. So the next question, is it a good idea to talk with your OB prior to applying to make sure they see you as a good candidate? That's a great question. I think, especially if you've had any sort of complications in your pregnancies, like maybe you did have gestational diabetes, maybe you had preeclampsia, maybe, you had some hypertension or anything like that, I would definitely talk to your OB and make sure that they would, agree to see you have another pregnancy. If you have questions about surrogacy, I'm sure they could also answer them as well. But I think, if your pregnancies were typically normal, then, as long as you think that they would sign off on the OB clearance form, that's totally fine. It might be a good idea to talk to them just to make sure that they're okay signing off on the form. And we could give that to you too. We send it to the office for them to sign off on, but we'll also give you a copy. So if you do need to go in for another appointment and a pap smear, you can take it with you and they can sign it and fill it out all at the same time, and you can send it back to us as well. Another question about the dietitian. Again, if you feel like you're going to need to talk to the dietitian, fill out that application. And when we talk in our Zoom call, I will get you all set up with her for that at that time. Do you have a time frame for how long it takes to be matched? Great question. Okay. So for matching, I would say from the time you apply to the time you are ready to match is typically about 1 to 2 months, just depending again on how quickly we can get your medical records from your OBs and your hospitals. If you've had pregnancies that were, not within the last 5 to 6 years, they might be a little bit harder to get because, the further you get out from procedures and medical timeframes, they get pushed back to the back of the office, or, if they're not already electronic, it might not be easy to find them and scan them and get them all ready. So sometimes it does take doctors' offices a while to send over those records. That's usually the thing that's the most time consuming in this at the beginning stage, is getting the records and reviewing the records. So, but typically I would say it takes about 1 to 2 months to get into matching. Do you have to stop breastfeeding to become a surrogate? Actually, yes, you do. You do not have to stop, during the whole intake and beginning processes, but when you're ready to match, we usually ask that you stop breastfeeding, again, because you can't do the medical screening until you're done breastfeeding. So we do have surrogates who have gone through the matching process who are still nursing, and their parents maybe don't have embryos made yet, or they're okay waiting for the surrogate to stop breastfeeding. That does happen. But most of the time the parents are ready to get started with the process and, want you to be ready fairly quickly as well. So, as long as you're okay with stopping before you get matched, then that's fine. But you can apply now and do the whole intake process. And if you still are planning on nursing for another couple months, you can do all of the intake process and then just let us know when you're done nursing, and we can move you into matching at that point too. Let's see. Can we pick our provider? Yes, great question. So when you are a surrogate, you will go to the intended parent's clinic for the medical screening, just so the clinic can approve you to carry their child. And then you'll also go to the clinic for the embryo transfer. And again, somebody asked about pay reimbursements and out-of-pocket stuff. So any travel related to the clinic and those kind of things, travel, flight, mileage, hotel rooms, things like that, that's all covered by the parents. So none of that is out of pocket. So you have the embryo transfer. You'll do the blood tests after the embryo transfer to see if the pregnancy is viable, see if we see those hormones in your blood. If we do, then at about 6 weeks of pregnancy, you'll get an ultrasound to make sure that the pregnancy is viable. And once it is, then you would just continue the rest of the pregnancy just as if it was your own. So yes, it would be with your own OB. You would deliver at your own hospital. At that point, if the parents would like to come to any of the appointments or be at the birth of the child, they would be traveling to you. So once you are pregnant, yes, you will be with your own doctors and your own hospital. Should my OB approve this prior to applying? Sorry if this was addressed already. That's okay. You don't need to be, they don't need to approve you prior to applying. We'll give you a paper that they can sign off of, and also we'll send it to their office as well to approve, to sign off and approve that, they approve you to be a surrogate. It also doesn't have to be your OB that you've used in the past. It's best if it is. But like if you moved recently, or your OB, so maybe he's retired and he's not in business anymore, anything like that, that's okay. It can be another provider that signs off on that, just as long as we also have that updated pap smear. And they, should know your history at least, and can, vouch for you to have another pregnancy. Let's see. Do we get to meet the family as we are being a surrogate for, or is it all based on how they want to do the process? That's a good question. Most of the time you will meet them in a Zoom call in the match meeting. But we work with parents all over the country, and we work with parents all over the world as well. We have some parents in Argentina and in Europe and in Hong Kong. So, if you decide to work with international parents, then it probably would be harder to meet them. Or a lot of times they'll try to travel to the United States a few weeks before the birth, and they'll stay, close to where you live until the birth, and then usually for a few weeks after. Sometimes they leave right away, but sometimes it's easier to stay for a little while and then travel back. They have to get visas and passports and everything for the baby. So at that point, you would probably meet them in person. If they're closer to you couple, you could meet them in person as well. But again, yes, you're right. It is kind of based on how you both agree to do the process. Some parents would rather it to be more of like a business transaction where you check in with them, let them know everything's okay, but they don't want to be super involved just because they're maybe more private, or, that's kind of how their culture is. Other parents want somebody to be involved and to be like their best friend. And even if it starts out one way in the beginning, you build that relationship as you go and as you talk to each other more, and it could end up, the other way by the end of the journey. So yeah, it's kind of just based on what each party wants, and how your relationship progresses as the journey progresses. These are all great questions. Does anybody have any other questions that we didn't cover yet? Sounds like everybody kind of has done a lot of research at this point, which is awesome. Let's see. What is the procedure if something happens with intended parents after confirmation of pregnancy? So meaning what? Like if something happens to them and they die? Is that what you mean? Yes. Okay, perfect. So that is a really good question too. So before you get to the embryo transfer, after the medical screening, you're cleared to move on. And before the transfer, you will create a legal contract with just the intended parents and you as the surrogate. The agencies are not involved in any of this, other than we help you secure a lawyer. So then parents will have a lawyer, you'll have a lawyer. Again, the parents will pay for your lawyer, but your lawyer represents you. And they will draft a contract, and everything regarding anything having to do with the pregnancy is listed out in the contract. So everything from, your compensation package, and how often they want to talk to you, and whether or not you can eat sushi, and whether or not you can get your nails done. But if they have this in there as well, if something would happen to them while you're pregnant, They have dedicated, they basically like a power of attorney. They designate who they want their guardian of the baby to be and all of that. So if you're worried that, you're carrying this couple's child and something happens to them and now it's yours, that's not the case. They will designate somebody else to be the guardian in the event that they die. It's a great question, though. Has there been a surrogate who still gets to visit and see how the baby grows over time? Yeah, that's a great question. Again, that's something that you would kind of do with decide on with your parents when you get to know them. But yeah, there's so many surrogates who get to meet their surrogate babies and watch them grow. They set meetings like maybe once a year, or if they live close, maybe they see them all the time. That's definitely an option. And when you are reading parent profiles before matching, and even in your match meeting, you can ask the parents if that's something that they'd be interested in, for sure, because you want to make sure you're on the same page if that's something that you want. I can tell you that I was a surrogate once in 2019, and we did meet the family a few times. My family met their family. They met my parents and my husband's parents and my kids, and they send pictures to me a couple times a year. They text and say, here's how the baby's doing, and send me pictures, and we send Christmas cards. And so there is still, we keep in touch. It's not anything crazy, but we do still keep in touch. But I do know, again, I know a lot of surrogates who do see their surrogate babies often in person too. So it's just kind of what you agree on with your parents at the time. Would the surrogate be biologically related to the child at all? No. When you are a surrogate, the embryos are already made. So sometimes it's a heterosexual couple and they use their own genetics. So the mom's egg and the dad's sperm, they make their own embryos. It's biologically their child. Sometimes they need a donor, so they'll have a sperm donor or an egg donor, but at least one of the parents will be biologically related to the child. But either way, we're not using your eggs. We're not using, your husband's sperm or anything like that. It's just you are the carrier. It's like, sometimes we say it's like extreme babysitting. When I was a surrogate, I used to explain it to people like, I'm just the oven. I'm just cooking the baby for them because for whatever reason, they couldn't do it themselves. It's their baby. I'm cooking, cooking it for them. So no, there's no biological relation at all to the surrogate. Through your journey, was it hard for you to hold a baby that wasn't yours? How were your emotions throughout the process? Another great question. And that's one that I got a lot when I was pregnant. People used to say, oh, aren't you attached? How are you going to give away the baby? For me personally, going into it, I knew that this wasn't my baby, that I was doing this for the other couple. So I think even just from the beginning, I knew that it wasn't going to be an issue for me. I just knew going into it that I wasn't going to be attached. Of course you're growing the baby, you're feeling the kicks and everything, but it's just different than, at least for me, it was just different than knowing it's not yours. I just didn't feel that same level of attachment. Not that I didn't, want to keep the baby safe or anything like that. I definitely did. I just knew that it wasn't mine. And so when I gave birth to the baby, the mom was in the room with me. I'm going to cry because every time I tell the story, I cry. So I'm sorry. She was up here by my head and I was pushing the baby out, and she never got to experience that before. So this was all new to her. So she was standing there and she was going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And she just kept saying it over and over. And the baby came out and they placed her on my chest, but she like immediately like touched her and held her hand. And then as soon as they were ready for her to, they cut the cord and everything, she took the baby. So I didn't even really get to hold her afterwards, but I didn't want to because I knew it was her baby. Um, and then after they had their time bonding together, then we went and visited them in their own room and got to hold her and see her. And it was just like I was visiting a friend who had a baby. I mean, that's exactly how it felt for me. I'm sure, a lot of surrogates that I talk to kind of feel the same way. You just know going into it, it's not yours. You're just taking care of it and helping it grow. Um, and then seeing the parents see their baby for the first time after all of the trials that they've been through to have the baby is just the best feeling in the whole world. I'll never forget it. I'm sorry. Is there ever a situation where a family will want the surrogate to breastfeed their child? Actually, there is. That's something that you will negotiate in your contract if you're willing to do that. Not breastfeed as in like you live with them for months and breastfeed their child, but I know a lot of parents are very conscious that colostrum after birth is a huge, benefit to the baby. And they will be, if you could pump, if you're open to pumping for them, most parents are very open to taking the colostrum or breast milk or whatever you can provide. Actually nursing the baby on your own is up to negotiation, whether you're comfortable with that and they're comfortable with that. But a lot of parents are very open to pumping and having you send them or give them in the hospital at least whatever milk you can get. But again, that's something that you can negotiate with them and talk to them about in their contracts, in your contract phase. So the biggest thing I think to understand if you want to be a surrogate is that, like I kind of said before, timelines. The whole pre-matching process is usually 2 months, and then the matching process itself usually goes pretty quick. But then after matching, from matching to embryo transfer is another 3 to 5 months. Then if the transfer takes on the first try and you get pregnant, then you're pregnant for 9 to 10 months. And so, this is why we call it a journey. It's not anything that happens overnight. I would, prepare to be involved with this at least 12 months, but most likely 18 to 24 months, especially if you do a transfer and it doesn't take on the first try. It's going to take another month or so at least to get to transfer number 2. And most legal contracts with parents and surrogates have, as long as they have the embryos, they usually involve 3 transfers. So you're at it. So it could be, extra months involved with the transfer. So, and another thing that we didn't even talk about, it's surrogacy is almost like IVF in that before the transfer, you have to go through basically an IVF process. You have to take medications. Each clinic has their own medication protocol, but most of the time you're taking birth control pills to regulate your cycle. The clinics are going to want to basically scientifically get you to the best possible point of the best time to transfer with the best lining of your uterus so that the embryo will stick, and hopefully they only have to do everything once. So you're going to take birth control pills to regulate your periods. You're going to take sometimes it's other different medications orally, sometimes it's medications, sometimes they have patches. that you can wear for a few days. Sometimes it's suppositories that you have to use like insert yourself. And then almost always there are self injections, meaning you will be giving yourself shots, sometimes in the stomach, almost always a shot in the back, like your top of your butt, like your back hip. If you can do it yourself, great. If you have somebody that can do it for you, great. But they will give you a calendar and you have to do it every single day at the same exact time. And if you get pregnant, those shots will continue for at least 10 weeks every day at the same time. So you have to be willing to take the medications. You have to be willing to, self-inject yourself with shots, with medication that way. And so like it's a very involved process just to get to the transfer. And if the transfer fails, then you have to do the whole thing over again. So it's a lot. There's a lot more involved than just, putting the baby in there. Here's another question. If the surrogate miscarries, are they disqualified from becoming a surrogate again? Is that something we work out in the contract? Good question. No, it doesn't disqualify you from being a surrogate again. The clinic will let us know if the surrogate miscarries, what their thoughts are on that. Sometimes they'll tell us that, they don't think that you would be a good candidate to be a surrogate again. But most of the time, it could be the quality of the embryos as well. So it could just have nothing to do with you. So we try to get you rematched if that's something that you want to do. Is that something we work out in the contract? So yeah, the number of tries that the parents want to do is something that you'll work out in the contract, the number of embryo transfers. Like I said, typically it's 3 as long as they have that many embryos. And if the surrogate miscarries, so like if you get pregnant and you miscarry, are you disqualified? I guess it just depends on the circumstances of the miscarriage and what the clinic says, what their thoughts are. They'll tell us what their thoughts are. If we can try to rematch you or move ahead with another transfer or something like that, we definitely will. But unfortunately, if the clinic would disqualify you for, like, if there was a medical reason on your end, then, we would have to probably disqualify you too. It just kind of depends on what the circumstances are. Any other questions? We didn't even talk about compensation. So let's talk about that real quick before we end this. All right. So for compensation, so our base compensation for first-time surrogates is $48,000. So that does not come in one big lump check, and it also doesn't come right away. Like we talked about already, you have the intake process, you have the matching process, and then the actual pregnancy. So the $48,000 is broken up into 10 monthly payments of $4,800. And those payments begin once we confirm the pregnancy at the ultrasound. After, like at that 6-week ultrasound we talked about. Then through the rest of the pregnancy, you'll get that payment every month until birth. There are other fees as well that are included, though, are not included in that base compensation. So additional payments that you would receive. When you start those medications that we talked about before, getting ready for your transfer, you'll get $500. When you have your embryo transfer, you'll get $750. When you get to your second trimester and you're ready to start purchasing maternity clothes, we give you an $800 maternity clothes allowance. You also will get, in addition to the base compensation, another $200 monthly allowance, which is supposed to be used to cover things like mileage to and from your doctor's appointments, prenatal vitamins, just little things that come along with being pregnant. Um, if you need childcare if you travel to and from the clinics for clinic pre-approval and things like that, you are entitled to $10 an hour for childcare. We would just need a receipt for that showing that you had daycare and they charged you $10 an hour. If you happen to get pregnant with more than one baby, so you have twins or triplets or something like that, each additional baby, you would get a payment after birth of $8,000. If you have to have a C-section, you'll get a payment of $2,500. Now, surrogacy, just like any other pregnancy, has its risks involved with it. And just in case you would have to have a hysterectomy after birth or anything like that, we have payments for those. You are entitled to lost wages. So the parents will pay lost wages for you for those travel days to the clinic. They'll pay, your daily pay for those days, as well as if you have a vaginal delivery, you're entitled to 4 weeks off of work and they will reimburse your lost wages for those. Sorry, I have a tickle in my throat. And also if you have a C-section, you will get 6 weeks off and they will pay your lost wages for 6 weeks. And then if you have a spouse or a partner, if your partner would take off to travel with you to the embryo transfer, or maybe take off a day or two off of work after you have the baby to try to help take care of you for a little bit, they will also reimburse your partner's lost wages up to 5 days for the whole pregnancy. What if you feel more comfortable with childcare being a family member? Are we also able to use the $10 an hour? I believe you need to show a receipt that they actually charged you that money for the childcare. So I don't believe you'd be able to do that. If you use family, that's fine. But I think you'd have to show that they were charging you at least $10 an hour for that. Great question, though. So that's the compensation package. And like I said, anything that is involved with the pregnancy from the time you're matched through the birth will all be reimbursed to you. And if you don't have insurance, so if you have Medicaid and you have to get off of it, or you don't have a policy or maybe you have insurance, but it's not a surrogate friendly policy, meaning they won't cover your pregnancy because you're a surrogate and it's not your own baby. The parents will also purchase a maternal policy for you. So they'll cover the monthly premiums for the policy and any out-of-pocket costs that come from you and your pregnancy, and like all of the well visits and the hospital and the birth and all of that. They will cover that for you as well. What if someone loses their job due to constantly going to the doctors and miss time for work? So that has to be something that you have to understand, that this is not an easy process. This isn't an easy paycheck. You are pregnant, and it would just be like if you were pregnant for your own child, would your work let you off to go to doctor's appointments? If you get sickness, like if you get morning sickness, will your job work with you on that? If you go on bed rest, if you go on bed rest, will your company work with you on that? That's something that you have to kind of think about before you get into this process. The parents aren't going to compensate you for losing a job because you weren't because you were taking time off for doctor's appointments and stuff. That's why this is not like this isn't easy. This is a journey. It's anywhere from 12 to 24 months of your life. It's your body, your family is going to sacrifice because you're going to be pregnant, and there's things that are going to not be easy for you to do with them like you usually do. And, they're going to have to take time to help you with things too, once you get, to the end of your pregnancy. And so it's going to affect every part of your life for the entirety of at least a year. So that's something that you need to decide on your own before you take this step. Do the families ever attempt to give more than the compensation? I don't know. I can tell you that my parents that I worked with, rather than giving us more money, they did try to give us, gifts. They bought us a day at a local amusement park and paid for the tickets, and they got me a massage, like a prenatal massage package and things like that. So I mean, I think things like that happen fairly often. I don't know about more than the compensation. Um, but if you've been a surrogate before, or if you would ever think about doing it another time, if you're a proven surrogate, you can, ask for a higher compensation. This is true. Somebody said that would, if your job fires you for always missing time for going to doctor's appointments and stuff because you're pregnant, somebody said that would be discrimination. I guess that's probably true too. Wow, I think we covered a lot on this call today. This was awesome. Does anybody have any other questions? The compensation for IVF and embryo transfers, do we get paid each time, even if unsuccessful? Yes, you do. Yep, every attempt, every medication start, you'll get that $500 fee, and every transfer, you'll get the $750 fee. Yep. And every time you travel, that's still going to be compensated. Awesome. Anything else? I feel like I covered everything, at least up until this point. Let's see. If you're on Medicaid and you don't know which insurance to get that will support pregnancy, what should we do? So you don't have to worry about that. If you're on Medicaid, all you need to do is come off of it. And then once you're matched, your parents will work with our insurance broker that we work with, and they'll get you the policy themselves. They'll pay for everything. It'll just be in your name to cover you. So you don't have to worry anything about that. This is a good question. Can we bring our children with us for the transfer? We would prefer that you don't, unless you have a support person there with you to maybe watch the kids while you're at the actual clinic in the transfer. But another thing about transfer, every clinic is different on this. My clinic that I worked with actually didn't make me do this, but a lot of clinics do put you on what they call modified bed rest. So you would say you go for the transfer on Monday afternoon, you go in, the transfer itself takes maybe 10 minutes. It doesn't take very long at all, but they want you to be on modified bed rest, which basically means you get to hang out in a hotel room for a whole extra day by yourself, laying in there, catching up on Netflix, eating whatever you want, and then you fly home. So keeping that in mind, if you are not really able to be doing anything, would you want your kids in the room with you all day, kind of being kids? So that's that, but they will not be allowed in the clinic. So if you have somebody there with you, then I guess that would be okay. They would not be allowed in the clinic. And I also am not sure how, the parents would feel about paying for everybody to do all that. Are the clinics local or where are they located? So we have clinics all over the country. It's up to you whether you would like to preferably only work with parents who are local-ish to you, or whether you would be okay with traveling, flying wherever the parents' clinics are. So that's something we can talk about in our intake interview as well, what your preferences are. Do we get compensation for loss of wages? Yes, you do. When you're traveling to the clinics, they will compensate you for lost wages. And that is in addition to that $500 and $750 fee. So you'll get the fee no matter what. And then for that day or 2 days or maybe 3 days that you're traveling, they'll also compensate you for your lost wages on top of that. Any other questions? Do we just have to show proof of how much we make? Yes. We'll ask you for your pay stubs to show the parents that that's proof of what you make. Yes. Anything else? All right, well, let's talk about next steps then. So if you are still interested after hearing all the stuff that we talked about today, in pursuing surrogacy, we would love to talk to you. So if you want to go to our website and click on the surrogate section, and there will be a button on there. I'm actually, looking at it right now. Request more information or apply now. Most of you probably already requested more information. So if you just go to apply now and fill out the application, that'll give us a lot more information on you and your background. And, we'll go through those applications. As long as everything looks good on our end, we'll contact you to set up a time for a Zoom. It'll be either with me or somebody on my team, and we will get to know you and ask, figure out what your thoughts are, what kind of parents you want to work with, answer any questions you might have in addition to everything we talked about today. And then, we'll get the process started for you. But like I said earlier, we have so many parents who are desperate to start their own families, to have that baby and be able to experience this journey that you have already been on your own. So we would love to work with everybody on this call. If you have friends that might be interested, send them our way. We have so many parents ready to go. So I really appreciate everybody being on here today and asking all these amazing questions. This was a really, really great webinar, and I'm really excited that I got to be here with you and help give you more information about surrogacy. Again, my name's Tara. I don't think I said this at the beginning, but I am the surrogate admissions manager here at Family Source Consultants. So, if you apply, you'll be hearing from me most likely, and we'll get you set up and we'll get you going. Kylie says, I already completed my application and someone reached out, but it was for this Zoom. What would be my next steps? So I don't know if you may have missed this earlier, but we've gotten a ton of interest lately from our TikTok that was posted that went viral. So we're trying to weed through all of the inquiries, all of the applications. So just be patient with us. I promise we'll get in touch with you. We do have everything. It's just taking the time to get them all sorted out. So yes, we will be in touch. I'll be reaching out to give you a Zoom link and figure out a time for Zoom to meet with us. So again, please be patient. If you haven't heard from us, reach out to, you can send in message through the website. If somebody has reached out to you already on the phone or sent an email, thank you. Understandable. Thank you for your time today. This was very helpful. You're welcome. I put my application in last night and can't wait to hear from you guys. Awesome. We will be, like I said, we're going to be working very hard to get through all of these because we really want to get our parents we want to get our parents some babies. That's what we're here for, to make families. So, I really appreciate you all coming today, and we will be in touch soon. Just be patient with us, but we'll be in touch soon. Thank you guys.